Okay. Hello, welcome to Karate Without Belts. I'm John,
And I'm Marty.
and we are launching into episode 2. Hooray, we survived.
Yes, we did. And
Yeah,
I want to add there that we've had some really good feedback from episode 1.
yes.
There's plenty of people have got in touch and told us we seem to be doing something useful. So let's carry it on and see where it goes from there.
Yeah, definitely. And in terms of whatever audio or editing stuff you guys have heard from before, we're new at this, so give it some time.
Yeah, but
I,
rough around the edges.
I have divined a way of keeping my dog from barking horribly during this by having a numerous amount of dog treats around me. So as
Nice.
me and Marty are talking, I am literally just flicking little pieces of dog treats, and he's just running after them. So
Cool. I did a similar thing by making sure my family had money and left the house.
where did you send them all?
Okay.
Every Saturday.
In a car with money, come back in 60 minutes. Bye.
Fair enough. No, as we're talking, my daughter is watching TV, and I was like, "Well, when we start doing this," and she's like, "Okay, so watch TV." I'm like, "No, can I watch TV with the sound off?" I'm like, "Do you want to?" She's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "All right." So I sent my child back to the 1910s, where there was all the pictures but none of the audio. So
that's all right. That's a good thing sometimes.
yeah, well, it is what it is. But yeah, how you been doing this week, mate?
Yeah, good. We got back to work this week. 7th of January, kicked off work in New Zealand here. Pretty much the whole country stops between about the 20th of December and sort of around the middle of January. So went back to work on Monday and back into the gym straight afterwards.
Oh, right on.
So yeah, finished up work, went down to the dojo and threw some weapons around for an hour or so, and met up with another one of my senior students. He came in and we did some work, and did the same again Thursday. Been doing some research work throughout the week on a kata I'm learning, and nursing a leg injury which has been plaguing me for most of last year. It's not enjoying getting used again. So I've got to work a way around that and keep training while I'm at it. How about you?
Well, I teach kind of a never-ending international ESL program. So literally, I've been working nonstop, even through like Christmas and New Year. So like we had like 1 or 2 days off for Christmas and New Year, and then we had to like not be in the building for New Year's Eve. And then my boss got to us and like, oh, by the way, you're not getting paid for New Year's Eve, and we're like, what? And so there was a little bit of mass rioting about not getting paid for not working on a holiday that we were forced to not work on. So yeah, but training wise, getting back in the gym slowly. Actually tried out intermittent fasting for a little while. Any bro stuff who tries to get on me about like, oh, you quit after a couple of days. I'm like, no, I just don't function without food in the morning.
Yeah, funny that, eh?
So I kind of noticed a little bit of like changing effect, but I guess for those who like get on it and like just keep on doing it, that's fine. But it just doesn't work for my schedule because I get up at like 4 or 5 in the morning. I start doing all sorts of different stuff, and like by the time it like 9 or 10 rolls around, it's like been up for that much time, and then I've got to go do more work and like run around most of the day. So I'm like, there's no. It's for people who have like more of a, like a 9 to 5 deal. It's a lot easier, but I'm just not someone who that's just not going to work for me. So I'm working just on keep everything healthy and keep relatively speaking. That being said, I did get Sicilian pizza for my students today.
That's not a bad thing.
But that made me a great teacher. That's all. Because none of them had it apparently before. So felt pretty good about introducing something new to them.
Yeah, cultural experience. It's a good thing.
Indeed, that's what I'm all about in terms of in terms of work. Dojo karate wise, so far has just been. I have 1 or 2 private students right around here, and I've actually helps dovetail us nicely into our kind of topic of the day. Is one of my students who had been training for about a year She contacted me New Year's Day, like last year, and was like, I want to start training. I have these XYZ limitations. It actually turned out she had, throughout the year, we discovered, she was losing weight and she was doing fine. And it was like one day we were working on the bag, and she just kind of collapsed. And we were like, is everything okay? Like, she went to the doctor and everything, and it turned out she had like a much like harder overall problem with her body that just hadn't been diagnosed. But that actually didn't stop her, and she just kept.
Good for her.
Yeah, she kept on pressing through, and she just kept on working. So lots and lots of props to her. Shout out to her, even though I won't try to name names because privacy.
Of course.
Stuff.
Yeah.
But she just kept on working, and I thought hey, we got into the new year, we might as well try to throw on some Kobudo.
Mm-hmm.
And because it kind of done a little bit here and there, did a little bit with Sai, but Sai is kind of something a little odd to start with. But we actually went with Tombo.
Sure.
Just because we just work out in our house. It's winter in the northern hemisphere, so we're not going outside with Bo. And so a lot of people will be like, "How dare you not start with Bo?" I'm like,
man,
sorry, but I started out with Tombo. What?
Just answer them back when they say, "How dare you not start with Bo?" Go, well, the whole Filipino nation don't do it that way. Why shouldn't why can't we do something different? Well, I don't think I've seen a Filipino martial art that starts with a bow.
No.
Yeah, what of it?
A lot of that comes out of necessity and things that are around, right? Not necessarily.
Absolutely.
And I just happened to have. It's funny enough. I had two pairs of Tombo, and I went to having a 1.5 pairs of Tombo. I went to a 7, and it's basically turned into our knee drills. And I lost. Somebody stole it. The one I was using. And made off with it, even though it clearly had someone else. It's just somebody I knew from high school, and they wrote their name on it, and so I forever have that person's Tombo. And now it's gone somewhere.
Now you forever don't have it. Yeah.
Now forever don't have it. So I was teaching a 2-stick kata to somebody with just one other stick.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, funny enough, you were the first person to teach me that.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Back in the trees in Missouri.
Oh Lord.
What were the odds of that, huh?
Well, yeah.
It's, you raise an interesting point about starting with the Tanbo, because not often, but just about every class, of regular class that I teach, we make our warm-ups with weapons. So we have a big stack of car tires in the corner, and one person holds the tire at chest height. The other person gets a tanbo or a screamer stick, if you're not familiar with the term tanbo.
Right.
And we do varying time rounds of hit the tire as hard and as fast as you possibly can. It's not about technique. This is about smash the living crap out of it. And I often say to people, hit that thing like it just punched your grandmother, or hit that tire like it stole your Xbox. And we'll do a 1 minute, maybe a 2 minute, and if I'm feeling really cruel, I'll make them do 3 minute rounds. And what we find is we do 3, 4, 5 rounds of that. And if you're going as hard as you possibly can, hitting a tire for 3 minutes, the other person who's holding the tire at chest height, hanging onto it for 3 minutes, by the time you've done 5 rounds of this, you don't need a warm-up. You are ready to go. And then we move straight into training from there. So we'll do striking drills on the tires, or we'll do, like you say, an arnis or Filipino type, just a stick, clicky-clacky stick hitting together drills for coordination and things like that. It makes a great part of a warm-up. It makes it interesting. I teach in an environment where there's at least one other class running at the same time as mine in a different martial art, and we can have 150 people walking around our venue at any one time, all looking at what everyone else is doing. And I've found that if I just have guys lined up just doing line work, standing there throwing basics and things, people look, then they keep walking. If they're standing there hitting tires, hitting sticks, throwing each other around the place, and this is part of our warm-up, people stop and watch and they pay attention. So for me, that's been a good thing. So, you know, like you say, sometimes you start with a bow. Sometimes we hit the tire with a bow. But for pure convenience, it's easier for me to have 20 single sticks lying around than it is to have 20 bow lying around. And that's how I kick my classes off.
Yeah, and I think like what's happened a lot is that people see the standard, you know, start with the bow, and they see a 6-foot stick that they can only go maybe outside for, or be in a special place for at any given time, and it becomes hard for them to actually imagine being able to practice with that at any given time. Now, like good bow guys I know don't care, that they will pick up that 6-foot stick and manage to make it work, even in a confined space.
Yes, that's right. In a room with a 6'4" ceiling, you can still make it work if you're committed.
Yeah.
But like you say, when you're a beginner student, that's not feasible. It's enough to move the unwieldy thing around, let alone have to get concerned about what damage you're doing to the furniture. So yeah, no, I agree with that fully.
Well, and I think there's what gets people about Kobudo, which is going to be our topic for today. What's the purpose of it? How does this mesh even into karate, or even on the Okinawan side of things? Because we see stuff like Filipino arnis or Screama or Kali, or even some of the stuff that Krav Maga does, and it's all knife defense, gun defense. This is the only thing that matters. And even in a lot more Genzai Budo, like Shotokan, and more of the stuff of Japanese karate and less Okinawan karate, you'll be maybe hard pressed to see somebody have more than a bow or sai lying around. So I think, you know, that's what mostly kind of sets Okinawans apart, but it makes people wonder what's the point, what's the purpose, what's the reason for it, other than it looks cool.
Yeah.
And I think it goes into the chicken and egg thing. What came first, having a weapon or having empty hands?
I think the answer to that question is what makes more sense.
Yeah.
If you're going to go to that guy over there and cause him bodily harm, and you have a choice between using your fist or using this short piece of steel bar I've got, I'm going to take the steel bar. If it's essential that guy gets hurt and that I come back home, I'm taking the steel bar. I'm not taking any chances. So, you know, history would, or the, what do we say here? The common explanations of history, as I understand it, martial arts history, as I understand it, was everyone learnt weapons first and empty hand came later, until people weren't allowed weapons. And then it was, well, you learn the empty hand and we'll teach you the weapons later if we get around to it, which got us to where we are today. So I think every society in existence, once they worked out that using a rock in your hand was better than just using your hand, they must have taught people to fight with a weapon. If we didn't, that was just dumb. So that's my thoughts on the matter. I mean, it makes sense. I can't see. You know, since I've been involved in an art with an integrated weapons curriculum, as opposed to an art that has just tried to clip on whatever they could find. The importance of weapons has become paramount to me. So I've trained, if you listen to our previous episode, I sort of went through the places I've dabbled around and played in. And I trained in a lot of martial arts, a lot of systems where we have weapons, but that's, you know, what they don't tell you is that's because we stole it off a video that we saw somewhere.
And I think it's interesting because you think back in the day, and you look at some of the history in Okinawa, to drop a little more names on term and kind of add what you were just saying. In Okinawa, they had weapons, but it was more the people who, you know, the army had weapons. You go to most people don't get that Okinawa, like, they actually had swords, they actually had spears, they learned, but they got a lot of that from whatever they had, who was ever passing by. and a lot of it was coming from China, and they would get stuff from Japan, but it was and whatever they could kind of mix together with what they
Sure.
had.
Yeah.
And I think when Satsuma came down, Satsuma being the guy who was ruling most of the southern part of Japan, Kyushu. When he came down,
they were the losers of the big war, right?
Sorry, Jeff.
The Satsuma got down there, or the whole problem arose. Weren't they one side of the big Shogun War that I can't think of the name of right now?
We're going to look like terrible Japanese historians if I start answering that question. But
I already do look like a terrible Japanese historian, but I admit it.
Yeah, right. I have a little more skin in that game.
Fair enough.
But he was on a conquering spree. That's essentially what was going on. That he had a stronghold in Kagoshima. He was trying, and at that time, people were you say there's a Shogun War. I mean, like, which one? There was tons going around. Like, they would shuffle in and out, and it wasn't. And everyone who explains this story acts like this is something that like happened overnight. Blah blah blah. It did not happen overnight. This was not something that the Satsuma just came down and was just like, well, we own the island now. Like, they had to stop on the way down because there's a lot more. There's a couple more islands on the way down than just Okinawa. And so people knew they were coming, and there was actually, just like today in any other political system, there was pro and anti, and there was pro China and pro Japan sides. Regardless of that, though, when they came down, they did ban weapons, but very much in the vein that after a certain point they banned swords. So there wasn't, I mean, probably about 100, 200 year difference, but it wasn't anything different than what was already going on.
Sure.
So, and I'm not getting any pro or anti-weapon stances of any other matter. So if anyone wants to get into that, like, don't at me, guys. Like, I don't care about that. Like,
exactly.
We're just talking about karate and Kobudo, and kind of why it came out to be this way. But then, so as legend goes, karate was created, but karate was already there, right? It was just something they did teach those weapons at first, but a lot of people now who say that didn't learn it that way, most likely. Because a lot of here it goes. That's all. Every podcast needs a good dog. But I think a lot of people didn't actually learn it that way. But I think we benefited a lot from learning Kobudo and integrating that into karate.
Yeah.
But when you say like people clipped on stuff they learned from videos, I don't really think that's, though I think that is a bit of an issue. It is a little inauthentic. I don't think that's anything really different than what people used to do. Because when there were study groups and Okinawan people were pretty much anywhere, when any study group would get together, people would just exchange forms or exchange ideas or techniques and stuff like that. So when they do that, it's just a means of exchanging it. But
where I have a problem with it, where it's always, it's not even that I have a problem with it. Where it's always grated my gears is when someone has martial art X, whatever it happens to be, they go out and they rip off some weapons forms from martial arts A, B, and C, whatever they happen to be. They steal either the kata or the drills, whatever, verbatim, unchanged, push them into martial art X, call it their own, and claim that it's authentic. That's where I have a problem with it. At least be honest, man. Give credit where it's due. Sure, I teach, as an example, Mr. Martial Arts X, as I feel about it, he should have the balls to stand up and say, look, I teach martial art X. We're going to look at some stick training, but I took that from martial art A over here. at least be honest about it. Give credit where it's due, man. Don't stand there and go, 400 years ago, great master Wu invented this pattern for the short stick, which just happens to look exactly like the one that martial art A do, but it's not theirs. I hate that. I can't stand people who do that. It's inauthentic. It's just bullshit. It's outright bullshit. So that's where I have a problem with it. And where I was going before, like now that I'm studying a martial art where the Kobudo is integrated, it is part of the art. It always has been. It ties to the empty hand properly. The two can be taught separately, but it leaves such a gaping hole when you take one element away from the other that it just doesn't feel right. Now that I'm working in an art that's like that, I could never go back to an art where you just rip off with someone else's shit and call it your own. It just doesn't work for me.
Yeah, and I'm even where we do pretty much more or less the same kata. Uh-huh. Even where there's clearly they're using kata from another, or it's shared by other people.
Yeah,
that recognition gets put on there.
Absolutely,
and that this comes from here.
Yeah.
Now that goes into kind of how far does lineage go in terms of actual practicality. But we get into it like this, what's the point of doing the 6-foot staff? Or what's the point of doing the bow? It's not a bow staff, people. It's not a bow staff. It's up there a bow or a staff. We're getting that out of the way right now. So they're a bow or a staff. Knock it the fuck off. All right.
Yeah.
We just got out of PG rating. All right, cool.
That's all right.
Wait, you guys have that down in New Zealand, like PG?
Yeah, we do.
13? Okay.
Yeah, same stuff, but here's to digress and sideline a little bit, but talking about exactly that. So we had the instructor that you and I shared for a number of years came down to New Zealand, and one of his first trips down here, he was walking along the city council reserve, which backs onto my house. And this gent comes from the Midwest in the States, and one of the things I noticed when I first went to the States was how polite the kids were. All these kids but compared with New Zealand kids of the same age, these kids that were at karate camps were so polite. Everything was yes, sir, no, ma'am, thank you, sir. I was stunned and amazed. Anyway, this guy's walking down the back of my section, and he's walking along, and a couple of 10-year-old kids walk past, and within one sentence, they managed to drop the F-bomb and the C-bomb about 4 times. And this guy comes back to my house. He was pale as a ghost, and he goes, I just can't believe it. I can't believe what those children said. And I remember saying to him, just going, yeah, we've sort of kept you sheltered from what language in New Zealand is really like. We come to the States and really, really behave. So, yeah. It was a great eye-opening moment, that one. It was funny from a New Zealand point of view, but there was a lot of shocked Americans in my house as he retold that story. They couldn't believe that a 10-year-old would use language like that. I'm like, just go and listen to the guys who live over in the house next to mine, man. It's everyday. It's everyday language. Everybody uses it around here.
Yeah, so, I don't think we get too many 5-year-olds tuning in, so I think we're all right. But we talk about the bow.
Yeah.
And the bow has got like a ton of uses for just itself. But when you think about applying it to empty hand, most of those katas, if you're looking at it from a wider perspective than just having the bow, body position, where your hands are, where everything is, if you're training the bow right, you should be able to divine more stuff from that than just, it's a bow technique. This is how we do it in bow. This is what bow is. So, and I think that applies to the longer weapons. You're Mr. Nunti-bow yourself, right? So, I mean...
It's remarkably rusty. I haven't practiced the nunta in a very long time, but no, you're exactly right. And like when I'm teaching students, what you and I both call Bokihon, right? It's a kata from the Oyata lineage there, and we're teaching Bokihon in just the opening motions, and from yoi through to about the third move. If you get that flowing, I get students that show them that one step at a time, and this is hard and it doesn't feel right, and go, okay, watch this. and you do it with flow and without breaking the movement, and they see this movement, go, oh, that's easy for you, rah, rah. Yeah, okay, now I'll put the bow down, now watch my hands, and do the same sequence of movements without a bow in your hand, and say to them, can you see how that ties back to the empty hand kata that you see us practice, and how it ties to the bunkai and the drills and all the other things we do and the covering movements? Does that make sense? And that's when they have an epiphany. They go, got it. I see the reason behind this now. And all of a sudden it makes sense, and we can move forward from there. And then they start looking at other weapons the same way.
Yeah. And I mean, it all directly applies to it. And I see so many people try to divorce the two.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't make much, because my history with Kobudo was more or less what a lot of people dealt with up until the point, actually, you and me met, where it was like, just, add our Nissan, and then, oh, look, there's a bow and a sai kata, and that's it.
Yeah.
There was, you handle a sai, and you handle it right, you're building muscles.
Oh, yes.
That I don't think they can probably get built by doing different exercises, but there's something weirdly specific about flipping sai.
Sure.
And I'm not just talking about flip sai, but with intention and with proper technique.
Yeah.
That build your wrists in such a way that doing empty hand technique, it builds a heavy hand. Mm-hmm. People would wonder, how do you do that? Just executing the technique correctly, then take the sai away, and then start executing the techniques from heavy hand.
Yeah, that's a huge part of that. Yep.
So I don't really see where people just do empty hand kata. It's not going to equal that, right?
Yeah. No, I agree with that fully. One of the other points that I look at, and I mean, I'm going to be completely honest, I hate exercise. There's nothing I can't stand. I passionately dislike exercise for the sake of exercise. It drives me batshit crazy. I have better things to do with my time. So if I'm doing exercise of some form, I better be learning something or improving a skill while I'm doing it. If I'm on my treadmill, on the TV in front of me will be a documentary or something that I can learn from. I can't stand just going to a gym and pushing weight. I'll do it. Now and again, I'll go for a burst at it and do it for a while and just go, come on. That just cost me an hour where I could actually be getting better at other things. So to me, the importance of the Kobudo training is that. I can practice the kata and work on drills and techniques with whatever weapon I happen to have in my hand at the time, and I'm gaining fitness, I'm gaining strength and ability at my martial art while I'm at it, without just pointlessly moving weight from position A to position B. And don't even get me started on CrossFit. Good Lord.
I don't know what that's about. Oh, this is like you're crossing the fitness.
Yeah.
Is that
you want to do CrossFit? To me, if I want to do CrossFit, I'm going to pick up weapons and do it with my karate. There's CrossFit, boom. And I'm actually gaining something out of it. I don't see a reason to just lift 100 kilos over my head 400 times in 10 minutes because that's what the dude I'm paying told me to do. Yeah. Fuck off. I've got better things to do than that.
Well,
do something constructive.
I'm from Philly, so I mean, Rocky. So we're kind of like, it's kind of built in as like, you gotta run, you gotta train, you gotta eat raw eggs. But
or not.
I frankly enjoy that. I do enjoy it because I've done like marathons and triathlons and stuff like that.
Sure.
And after counting injuries I sustained about a year and a half ago, I'm just trying to get back to that level of fitness to do that. But I agree with you that like if there's not a goal in sight, because I see that stuff as, all right, I'm going to work this today so I can get better at that. I'm going to work that so I can get better going towards that direction, even if it's a boring and there's ways of making that stuff more interesting, because you're building, even when you're doing exercise in terms of like lifting weights, you're still building that skill. Your Nahachi's going to be stronger. Your bow is going to be stronger because you are stronger. But how you actually translate that strength into martial arts, not just pure raw hit, which 99% of people won't know how to deal with.
Yep.
You know, that's where I come from with that.
Yeah, and that's part of the whole Kobudo thing for me is in my dojo, if I have one of my black belts take a warm-up in class, quite often it'll just turn into exercises or just do calisthenics. Okay, yeah, all right, whatever. That's where you're at in your development. When I'm taking a warm-up, I would far prefer, in fact, we do this quite a bit, we'll do let's hit it with sticks, hit the tires with sticks, right, form up, get in a line, let's do 5 exercises and 5 kata back-to-back without a break, put everything you've got into it, put all your effort in. You do that, that'll take up, you're doing 10 things there at 2 minutes a piece, there's 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Plus the time you just spent on the sticks. Bingo, we just had a 30-minute warm-up. If you're not sweating and you're not panting at the end of that, that isn't my problem. That's a you thing. You didn't put the effort in to get your body to that level. I regularly get to the point, and part of it's because I'm unfit, but I'm not as fit as I'd like to be. But I regularly get to the point where I'm running a warm-up. If I'm taking part in it, I can't actually count anymore because I've run out because I'm going hard. I want to work hard when I'm warming up. So, it just seems right to me. So, but I use the weapons for that. That's where I was trying to tie that and get back to what we're supposed to be talking about.
Suppose, let's podcast. You can go anywhere with it. It's fine. No one's looking over our shoulders.
Not at all. So here's another point. Let's digress a little, but keep it on the Kobudo topic.
Right.
One of the big ones. People look in my dojo. We have a lot of Muay Thai. We have a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu people where I train at.
All the people the worst parts of those people who will say, "What are you doing, man? You're not doing what You're not getting on the ground and pounding." And by the way, if you're Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Muay Thai listening to this, you're doing fine. Like we don't have any problem with you. We have problems with there's Nacian people on the side of traditional Okinawan martial arts too. But the kind of I was going to say WWE, but those guys actually do risk a lot when they go out and do their thing, even as weird as it is. But the MMA people or the UFC people who are just bro team.
There's some dickheads out there. Let's be honest. So we get these guys. They're watching us, and we're moving. We're swinging sai around, and they're going, "What's the point? You're never going to carry those down the street with you." Correct. Or we're working nunchaku. You're never going to carry nunchaku down the street. Correct.
You cannot have nunchaku in Canada.
Well, there you go. How? Yeah, man, that's discriminatory.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you can't have these things. You can't carry them down the street. And they're right. Of course they're right. You can't argue that.
Right.
But if you understand how nunchaku work as a flexible weapon for grappling and takedown purposes,
right.
And I teach this in my nunchaku classes. We'll go through and do 6 classes of nunchaku. Then for number 7 and 8, I'll bring in the chain and I'll bring in an appliance cord and we'll bring in like a handbag, not my handbag.
Right.
I don't use my handbag for shit like that. I only bring it out for special occasions. We'll bring in examples of flexible things, a bike chain that you've got lying around, and execute the techniques with those.
Right.
And then people see the connection. They go, "Oh, right, yeah. Oh, I've got a tow rope in the back of the car. Yes, of course you do. Oh, I have a belt around my jeans. Yeah. Do you see why I carry my car keys on a piece of 2-foot chain with a clip on the end? It's for those reasons. That's the connection to the nunchaku. You want to talk about sai? Well, you need to be able to handle a short piece of pipe is not hard to find. Short piece of stick, particularly the tanbo, not hard to find. Knife training is universal.
Yeah.
So just because the weapons we train are hundreds of years old and steeped in history and all the rest, doesn't mean they're not immediately applicable to what is real in today's society. It's pretty easy to be working in a place and pick up a piece of flat steel bar if you're working on an industrial site or places like that. It's not hard to find. It's not hard to
Well,
find something that's 18 inches long, an inch round, and solid enough to crack a skull if need be. Not hard to find.
and that's where I think a lot of, and this is interesting because we talk about kind of clip-on version of weapons, is that it's not clip-on. You have to integrate it. You have to integrate it. Otherwise, you're just, I mean, you can just kick and punch, and there's people in this who don't understand that you need to work on kick and punch before you start doing that stuff. Because if you're not also working on kick and punch, then kick and punch won't be good. Then the bare basics of what you are supposed to be doing in karate are already failing.
Yeah.
But if you are not integrating tonfa and bow or whatever weapon you want to practice, because it doesn't need to be exhaustive. You can just integrate 5 weapons and you can decide upon that, and that's fine, in my opinion. We don't because we have a kind of a lineage that we follow. Some people are a little more verklempt on terms of what's going on with it, but whatever. But for tonfa, for example, that's a police baton. That can be,
if you like. Yeah.
And there's tons of applications with that cross over into like kama, oddly enough. And you go over to Japan, you go down to not just the islands but also the mainland. They're carrying around kama. Funny thing was, I was in a dojo in Okinawa, and I was doing a visit. It's kind of one of the more rougher translation times I've ever had, but the head of that school was saying there's no point in doing a double kama weapon or weapons kata or something like that because it makes no sense. No one does that. Everyone who does farming just hacks away with one.
Yeah, which makes sense.
And it makes zero sense why you're doing a double kama kata. That being said, when I first got there, there was like grass probably 2 feet tall, and we had the poisonous habu snake on our island. For those who don't know, the habu snake is indigenous to the Ryukyu Islands, on about 3 or 4 of the islands. And if it bites you in the right muscle groups, you have about 30 seconds until those muscles start liquefying from the poison. If it bites you in the neck, you're more or less dead. So we had kids living in our apartment complex, so I just went out there. It was probably around the first 2 weeks, and just started hacking away at the grass until I got about halfway through before it just got too hot. Next day, people are out there with like weed whackers and stuff. They're like, yeah, the foreign English teacher shouldn't have been doing this. This needed to get done a long time ago.
Sure.
But what is it? One of the oddest things, the oddest times I've ever had with Kobudo was just in terms of their transport, and it had everything to do with Canada. So I went up to Canada one time with an old student of mine. It was my roommate at the time, and we brought Sai. And we decided to declare them. It was weird because we went up to Canada and we went back, and for whatever reason, from the U.S., you used to just be able to just show your driver's license or ID and get through the border just fine. And it was like 3 days after we had gotten out of Canada, we were like, hey, let's go back tonight. And so we drive up, and we hit a lot of traffic, and then we finally get to the border, and we say, okay, here are our IDs, and they're like, no, these aren't passports. How dare you? And like try to interrogate us and all that stuff. And they were like looking through the car, and they were like, what are these? And my buddy just goes, large metal forks. We're carrying large metal forks, just trying to shut me up from any possible weapon explanation.
Yeah.
But the second time I was just traveling to Japan, and one of my other students had given me a custom pair of nunchucks, of really nice, really heavy, that was taking over with me from the U.S. I was rooting through Canada, and I went to the customs guy, and I was just rooting through there. I wasn't getting out there, and it was like, well, I've got nunchucks in one of my bags. He's like, you're bringing nunchucks into Canada? And I was like, no, I'm not going to Canada. I'm going to Japan. He's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell, man?
We're just
Why do you
passing
hate
through
Kobudo?
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you hate Kobudo so much?
Oh, yeah, you reminded me of something. We were talking, yeah, that's right. Talking about applications, weapons, whatnot. So in my curriculum, we teach sort of a dozen basic bow applications, which are taken straight from lessons that I've been taught that are authentic to our lineage. Now, when my students are learning, they learn the bow first, and then the next kata they learn is Jo Kihon, and then the next belt they get to play with Tanbo. So we have a different basic weapon for every belt in round figures as
Right.
they move through the curriculum. Now, so you've learnt the bow, and while you're learning the Jo kata, also in the curriculum says bow bunkai numbers 1 to 6, I think it is. So you learn those, and that's cool. Then you come along, you're learning the next weapon. It says, Jo bunkai numbers 1 to 6. And what surprises people is they go, wow, what are the Jo bunkai? What are the Jo bunkai? They go, cool. You know the bow ones you learn? Yeah, right. Now learn to do those same motions with the Jo. Oh, okay. Well, that's easy. And then they come along, they learn the next weapon, and they eventually get to say nunchaku. Yeah, nunchaku bunkai. That's cool. You know the ones you've learnt for the Jo and the bow and the tanbo now? Now work out how to make them work with the nunchaku. So what I'm teaching, at the bottom line, the students learn basic kata for 8 different weapons as they progress towards a black belt.
Right.
But they only learn 6 applications along the way. But they learn those 6 applications with 8 different weapons. And we also take a rough look at how they could work empty hands as well. The idea is not to swamp a student's mind with, here's all these different techniques that you need to learn. Now go away and learn them. The idea is to get them to realize that there are common principles shared across multiple tool sets, whether it's a weapons tool set, an empty hands tool set, a grappling tool set, I don't care. There are multiple principles, common principles between them. And when you can learn to spot those, that's when you really understand martial arts. And that's the whole thing even about empty-handed kata bunkai. It's not about having being authentic and having the right bunkai for every kata. I don't believe that at all. I've got myself to a point now where I believe, and this applies to weapons as well, is look at the motion, at the movements, and work out what you can do with it, because that's what the bunkai is. It's what you do with it. It's not what some other guy did with it. Use their stuff as inspiration, but you put it together yourself. And if you do it right with weapons, then it makes your empty hand stronger.
Right. Sorry, we're probably going to have a dog barking at one point. There we go.
Oh, like that. There we go.
Yeah, it's just like that.
He's just agreeing, man.
Exactly. That's what I always tell him. Yeah, the problem is a house dog that needs to be... So...
And there we've gone muted for a moment while John sorts out his dog. Pretty sure we can edit this bit out.
Yeah, so says you. Oh.
There we go. We'll just edit that chunk out where the dog decided, dog had to put his 2 cents with it. I believe if I understood it right, it was addressing the same common principles between burying bones and using Kobudo weapons.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much.
Or something like that.
His teeth are his teeth kata. I've been trying to teach him, but it doesn't really get. Well, he's gone from seeing me do karate. He's like, all right, we're going to play. To you're doing your thing. I'm gonna sit here eating my bone.
Yeah.
So he's varying degrees of. The problem is we have a house dog in an apartment. So black lab German Shepherd in a 3-bedroom apartment's not.
Yeah, it's got to be hard work. Yeah.
It tends to be. The problem is he thinks the whole apartment complex is his. And everyone else he sees is like, no, you're not supposed to be here.
But, you mean it's not his?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I get at with the Kobudo is that, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, is that bunkai is your own. That ultimately, that karate needs to be your own. That technique needs to be your own because you need to do it. And
it has to be.
So many people attribute that concept to Bruce Lee or kind of like it's a modern concept. This has been something people have been doing since they've been able to pick up a weapon, since they've been able to put something together. So if anyone thinks that, oh, I'm not doing it right, does it work? You're doing it right. Now you might not be doing it optimally, but yeah, you're doing it. You make it work.
Yep.
You make it work. Like,
yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
I think there's ways. There's people who have a very good understanding of like body positioning, for example.
Yep.
Or how a stance needs to be done, and then how that's going to actually come out in a kumite type situation. On summer camp, we had a Kobudo summer camp out here, hosted by a top Kobudo guy, and I was asking him like, how do you come up? We were doing one of his drills, and I was asking him, how do you come up with that drill? He's like, come at me with a stick. And I just came out with a bow. He's like, well, that's just what came out because I practiced the kata.
Yeah.
And so that's how I just kind of came up with it, because we just started seeing how stuff got put together, and then, all right, well, that's how that came out of that kata. Moving on. So I was very nonchalant about it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
So I'll take that for what it's worth. There isn't a whole lot more I could really say in terms of the Kobudo, because for us, we see Kobudo as just, of course, but for a lot of people, I think they think it's something that they can't access or do. It's just an ancient thing, or it's not really useful. But I think it's just as useful as anything else. But it's just how well is it applied to what you're doing, and whoever you're under, or whoever you're doing stuff with, says no, it's impractical and unfeasible. I mean, fine, if that's kind of the direction you want to go in. But if you want to try to take a step out from that, give it a try.
Absolutely, yeah.
People,
and
yeah,
no, you did right. And for anyone out there who's thinking about it, going, well, maybe I should be adding this to my martial arts. How could I learn this? How can I pick this stuff up? There's plenty of places where you can start. Buy a weapon and have a play. Jump on YouTube, have a look at what people are doing. Just dabble around. Just be honest about where you got it from. Like I was saying earlier, give credit where it's due. But there's always a way to, there's always a way to improve what you're doing just by having a dabble. And to anyone who says that it's not relevant in the modern world, just pick it up and play, man. Pick it up and play. You'll have a lot of fun. It's incredibly challenging. It's a great coordination exercise. It's a lot of fun. And then as soon as you start moving around, looking at different things, I'm sitting here in my kitchen. In my head is a picture of Sai, and sitting on my bench is a knife sharpening steel. You can't get a lot closer than those two things.
Yeah.
What I can do with Sai, I can certainly do with that knife sharpening steel. So it is interchangeable information. And if you're really stuck and you don't know who to talk to or where to get started, drop us a line in the comments. Either John or I would welcome the opportunity to introduce people to the right people in the right places to help you get that working. So
I mean,
enjoy the journey.
Yeah, it's not that hard to. I mean, it's not that hard to reach out to us or like anybody else who would know that, and what you make it as your own. And you were talking a little bit about authenticity.
Even the dog,
and the dog agrees. Look, he agrees. He's getting angry because other people don't agree.
Sure.
But it's also like this. You were talking about authenticity. Authenticity, making it work.
Yeah.
That's where it comes down to.
I think that's a bit of a mind fuck actually, because the new authenticity is being able to use it and being able to make it work, as opposed to it's historically correct and hasn't changed for a couple of hundred years. And I think
for a couple of hundred years, how has it not changed?
Yeah, and I think that whole idea, that authenticity is being able to make it work. That's actually, I'm going to focus on that for the week. That's really good, because that's a core message that the BJJ people put out there, right? Our art's so good because we make it work, and without doubt, they do make it work. They're not the only ones that make their arts work. And that whole sentence, yeah, that's really cool, man. That's a good ending thought.
Yeah.
And weapons training with empty hands training, if it's authentic, you'll be able to make both work really well. So that's a fantastic note to end on, man.
I hope.
Well, it works for me.
What are you working on this week?
What am I working on this week? So my regular classes don't kick off again until the 21st of January.
Okay.
So I'm enjoying a little bit of holiday time, but on my regular teaching nights, I still go into the dojo, and I've been working on Joe Kata over this last week, and on a complicated advanced kata, which you know bits of.
Okay.
I've been starting to repair my knowledge of that, rebuild my knowledge of that, and share it with my senior students. So yeah, this week I'll be working a bit more on that kata, sharing it with probably two of my senior guys who'll drop into the dojo and get a bit of a workout in. Yeah, blow the dust off everything and get ready for classes kicking off on the 21st.
Wow.
This year, around about the first week of February, we're actually kicking off a youth class, which is something I haven't taught before. So we're going to teach a class aimed at kids aged between 11 and 15. So I'm not a big fan of teaching to younger children than that. I find it very difficult myself. So I've agreed to have a go at teaching a group of kids between 11 and 15 and trying to build them up as what we're calling as a marketing term feedstock for our adult class. Get these kids engaged at that younger age so that as they get in past 15, they're late teens, young adults, and they're really keen to carry on with martial arts. They move into our adult class and go from there.
Yeah, that's cool. I have yet to be able to really get a class like that off the ground. I'm hoping I can. Since I've taught in elementary schools, I know how to deal with that a little more, especially with the martial arts aspect. It's easier to kind of keep. I feel it's easier to keep them in line, but I've never really had to deal with that as my own class.
Sure.
Yeah. What I'm doing is this week is just trying to get a decent schedule for myself going between kind of developing a shadow boxing for karate, as it were.
Nice.
Where it's just not just kata, but just like I said in the beginning through this, is that kind of kicking and punching for whatever reason gets put to the side for karate people in favor of doing more quote unquote advanced things. Mm-hmm. And that needs to lead into those more advanced things. So sure. What we do in our system is called Joe box, and we have that, and it's a box that's 4 foot by 4 foot, and we move around in it, and that's basically it. Now apply the principles, free flow principles of shadow boxing. Mm-hmm. Add some techniques into that.
Yeah.
That's essentially what I'm working on developing. And it's not in any sort of set order. It's just, how can I best model that to a student so they can mimic it. And
that makes sense.
But what I'm finding is you really need to have a strong base before you can even jump into that. Because it's free flow. But it's not just like randori punch kick, punch kick, punch kick, punch kick, punch kick, punch kick. It's a little more than that. But but it's not just us lining up. Okay, he throws a punch, you do a technique. Okay, line up. Now you throw a punch at him, he does a technique. Very good. We know karate. So
that's where it goes wrong. I mean, that could be we can do a whole nother podcast on that, on the evolution of fighting ability. But if you take free sparring like I learnt it in the 80s, was hopeless. It was a terrible way to teach people. And it created a bunch of bad habits that have taken me a long time to erase. So what you're trying to do with your shadow boxing idea, if I've understood it correctly, then I think you're going to avoid those problems, and you're going to avoid exactly what you're talking about there, where you say, hey, he does a technique, you do something, I do a technique, he does something, we know karate. I think you're right. It's a good move, man. It's a good call.
I hope.
Interested to hear how that works out.
At least we're not just sitting there going, ha, we know karate.
I do that occasionally.
Yeah, well, we do that. We do that. But yeah, who doesn't just sit there in their gi and just be like, I know martial, I know kung fu. You know
That's
what?
right.
You know how many bloody people know kung fu these days? You know how many movies have bloody kung fu running around in them? You know, it's nothing that special. But
That's right. It's not a big thing anymore.
But it is, because it's yours.
Yeah.
Right?
If you're doing it authentically, right?
Right. There we go.
Good call.
All right,
man.
man.
I'm gonna sign out. Farewell for the bottom of the world. Have a great week up there. Or
you guys
fortnight, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And
we will see people when we see people. All right,
yeah,
guys.
right on.
Keep on training. Keep on working.
Very
Peace
much.
out, world.